Hi, Elizaveta. Let's take a look at your new set of essays. The first one is about pollution, the reasons for it, and how can it be solved. Let's see what you said. Nowadays, urban areas are very polluted because of different factors. However, there are many approaches to tackle this problem. Okay, that's fine. It's a little brief, but it's okay. I mean, you said that there are factors and you said that there are approaches, so you covered the main elements. You might have wanted to, kind of beef it up, maybe with a little extra information. Like, for example, you could have said nowadays urban areas are very polluted because of different factors, including X and Y. However, there are numerous approaches to tackle this problem, which will be discussed in the essay that follows. So you could have just added some of those elements to this. All right, let's move on. One reason for the problem is the large number of various factories producing dangerous gases and smog. Okay, first of all, it's gases with an S, and I would not have included the various. The word various does not help you here. So one reason for the problem is a large number of factories producing dangerous gases and smog. Despite the fact that filters are installed in factories, they are not 100% effective. Thus, plants continue to spoil the air and water. One of the most effective ways, with an S here, to address the issue is the usage of clean types of energy. For example, governments can implement some laws like providing perks and benefits or relief taxes for manufacturers who use, who use clean types of energy, such as water or sun power. It's called solar, usually. Okay? Therefore, officials will encourage manufacturers to safeguard the environment, and these measures help alleviate the situation. Okay, that's fine. You did this in a way where you've got reason and solution, and then I'm assuming you've got reason and solution. That's certainly one way to do it, and it's an effective way to do it. I'd say more often people prefer to do reason in one paragraph and then solutions in another paragraph. Both ways are fine. The way that you did it kind of assumes that the solution will have a set problem and so you can put them together. Sometimes that's not always the case. So and when that happens, it works better to just talk about the problems here and then the solution separately. But like I said, what you did is fine. Let's see what you wrote for your next paragraph. Secondly, overconsumption also provokes pollution in large cities. When people consume many products, much rubbish emerges. No comma here. Much rubbish emerges that damages the environment because some kinds of litter cannot be recycled naturally. However, there are some simple measures which, no comma here either, there are some simple measures which help to reduce the amount of pollution in urban areas. If manufacturers minimize the usage of materials which demand much time to be recycled and, for example, prefer paper to glass as the first is more easily recycled. Okay, the environment will become cleaner. Additionally, people should take responsibility for various environmental issues in the world. Governments, okay, like what? Here. Governments, in turn, via mass media, can inform people about these acute problems and persuade them to consume less as well as take care of nature. All right, now let's talk about what happened here. I felt like this read like a list. Okay, so you had this thing about overconsumption. Okay, and then quite frankly, you didn't really write a lot. So look at this. This whole thing was about, these 3 lines were about the problem. Okay, and then the rest of the paragraph was really focused on the solutions, but I felt like your solutions really read a lot like a list. Okay, so this sentence was fine about paper and glass, it was okay, but then here, people should take responsibility, governments should do this. So this read to me like a list, and you don't want that. All right, if you're going to present an idea like these here, then you need to support them. Okay, and it's better to, have fewer ideas, but to have them well supported rather than having lots of ideas and then no support for them. So, and you basically, you really only needed one or two here, okay, in this particular paragraph. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. Let's move on. In conclusion, regardless of the fact that cities are very polluted, the root causes of it can be tackled with several simple strategies. All right, that was fine. Brief, but fine. So it's a good essay. I hope that you understand what some of the issues were, what some of the areas were. Um, here it was partially the 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 lack of development of the problems, and in fact, if you look at this, the same thing happened here too. Your paragraph on the problems here. Here, look. So your section about the problems in the first body paragraph was just 3 lines as well. So it's a small paragraph. It's only about 6 lines. So in other words, there's not really a ton of information regarding the problems. And I'm wondering if maybe you could have developed the problems. Like, in other words, if you had put both paragraphs here, it would have looked like this. So it's a small paragraph, and I'm wondering if maybe you could have developed it a little more. Okay? So that's something to think about. And the other things that I mentioned as well, making sure that you support your paragraphs. So let's take a look at what you wrote for your task 1 now. All right, now let's take a look at your task 1. It's a stacked bar chart, so let's see what you wrote here. The graph depicts the number of branded cars, namely Ford, Audi, and BMW, sold in different European countries in 2018. Okay, this is one of these instances where it's a good idea to first of all, tell us the number of countries, and in fact, some people in parentheses actually write the name of the countries. That's a good habit to get into, because when you have this many, it becomes very easy to leave one of those countries out. You don't want to do that because that's considered your key information. So all of your categories here, the 3 car companies as well as the countries, those are your categories. So you don't want to leave at least the name of any of them out. Okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. All right, let's see what you said. Overall, it is clear that the most preferable types of cars which were sold in 2018 varied from country to country. Okay, now I do think you could have said something a little more specific. It is true that there was some variation, but I think there was something you could have said in terms of a trend. So first of all, you could have said that of all of the 9 European countries in question, Hungary sold the most. Okay, so that was one thing you could have said in your overview. You could have said, overall, it is clear that Hungary sold the highest number of cars, and on average, BMW was the most sold. Okay, at least that's what it looks like to me, that it's BMW. So those were a couple of things you could have said for your overview. This to me is just a little vague, that it varied from country to country. Okay, let's move on. In Belgium, the smallest number of branded automobiles, comma, less than 100,000, no S, comma, were bought in 2018. Ford was the most appealing kind of cars among Belgians, ANS, while the number of sold Audi and BMW reached only about 1,000. In Hungary, by contrast, the greatest number of automobiles were sold, and the figure hit a peak of almost 400,000, no S here. We also don't say hit a peak. I'll tell you why in a minute. It is worth mentioning that the number of sold branded cars was nearly equal. Okay, and it is estimated by more than 100,000, no S. In Germany and Ireland, as well as Holland, people bought approximately the same number of branded cars in 2018, and the figure was more than 250,000, no S. While the number of sold BMW and Audi in UK and Italy was nearly equal, number 4 differed a lot, 100,000, no S, and 10,000 respectively. Okay, so check it out. First of all, one of the most important things for me is that you didn't mention all the countries. Okay, that's clear. In fact, I'll just double check. Okay, so from my estimation here, I looked it over again. It looks like you missed 2 countries. So you didn't mention France at all, and you didn't mention Poland at all. And that's important. Even if it's just by name, you do need to mention them, okay? Because if I didn't have this chart in front of me, then I would think that there were only 7 countries in this chart when they were clearly not, okay? So keep that in mind. That's the first thing. The second thing is your organization. Now, you decided to have one paragraph with all of your data, with all of your details. I don't think that that was the best way to do this. What I would suggest instead is to have 2 paragraphs for your details. I would have 1 paragraph talking about the total number of sales, okay? Of all the car types. I would talk about Hungary, I would talk about Belgium, and so forth, but in a total sort of sense. So 400,000 versus just under 100,000, and so forth. So I would spend a paragraph talking about that. And then I would spend a paragraph talking about the individual companies. Okay, so I know you might be thinking, well, that's a lot of information. That's approximately 36 pieces of information. Yeah, but you don't need to mention all of them. Okay, so let me show you how I would do this. So I would start by saying that Hungary sold the most cars of the 9 nations in question at just under 400,000 cars sold. It was followed by France at just above 300,000 cars sold. The least sales were found in Belgium at just under 100,000, and the remaining countries, and you can name them if you haven't named them yet, so you can, do them by name, all sold between 120,000 and 260,000, whatever that figure it is. Okay, so that's pretty much how I would do this paragraph. I mentioned 1, 2, 3 things specifically, and the rest I just gave you a range for those other 6 countries. Then I would have a new paragraph now, and I would talk about the individual cars. So I would probably start by saying that it appears that BMW sold the most in the 9 countries in question. It sold approximately 100,000 cars in all 9 countries except for Belgium, where it sold a negligible amount. Okay, and then I would talk about Ford. I would talk about Ford's figure in Hungary and in Holland. Okay, I would talk about those really low numbers in Germany and in Italy, and then I would probably give you a range, an approximation of where it was, of where Ford was in those other countries as well. And then I would do something similar with Audi. So that's one way to organize this. So you're not missing any key information. You're not adding information that is, not really important. You're focusing on those key information, but you're including things that need to be there. Okay, so that's how I would suggest approaching this, and that's just something to think about as you move forward and try to organize your answers for task 1. So go ahead and send us your next set. I'll be looking forward to it, and good luck to you.